So we continue in the lithium-ion battery Europe with La Nuova Mobilidad, and now where we met with Konstantin Burger. Welcome to La Nuova Mobilidad.
Welcome. Thank you.
So you come from Rock Tech Lithium, which is quite an iconic name. Maybe you can walk us through your role and what is the mission of the company.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, guys. So Rock Tech Lithium, as you say, is the combination between a hard rock mining project, lithium mining project, and a lithium refinery in Germany. So the two front steps of the supply chain. I run corporate development, which basically means everything and nothing. So M&A, strategic projects, which are the next customers that we should go to, who are the next markets that we should approach. And I've been with the company for nearly 5 years now. And before that, I worked for Tesla. So the electromobility is very close to my heart.
So you mentioned Germany. So you have you're building facilities in Germany. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah. So we're building a lithium refinery in Germany, in Brandenburg, on the Polish border. Why are we doing that? In 2019, we went to China and we realized that the bottleneck in the lithium supply chain is these lithium refineries, because there's enough material in the ground for you to mine. But really, if you want to have battery cell production in country, you need to have these refineries. And so then we looked at a trade-off study between the US, Canada, and Europe, and decided back in 2020, when we decided to build this, that Europe was the ideal place to do it, because you had more EV sales in Europe than you had in North America, which is a bit different nowadays, but that's why we decided from the get-go to go to Europe.
So the company is originally from North America?
Correct, it's a Canadian company, yeah.
Which has already refineries in Canada?
No, it's a junior company. We have a junior mining project in Canada, and then we have our refinery project in Germany. And we've just announced end of last year that we're also planning to build then the second refinery in Canada.
Okay.
To make sure that we can basically supply both Western markets, Europe and America.
For the one in Germany, you already have a customer? Or?
Yes, we're selling 40% of the production to Mercedes-Benz. It's all public. It's a binding offtake agreement. It's lithium hydroxide because it caters to the NMC battery type that has long range, high density and whatnot.
But it hasn't launched yet, or?
It's construction ready. We've received all permit approvals, so operation, construction, and environmental. We've secured our EPCM partner, so we know who's building it. It's Worley, one of the renowned engineering firms, and we're currently finalizing the financing.
All right.
Which hopefully is done by the end of the year, but in the current markets, we've stopped to really give timelines. Because there are so many variables in the market that us as a junior company, we cannot control all of these. But yeah, it's the last missing link in the financing that we're putting together.
Gotcha.
In Germany.
Okay. We have been seeing several drawbacks in the battery industry in Europe. We saw Northvolt going down. We see Cellforce at Porsche going down, and so on. And then at the same time, we see a lot of Chinese companies coming to Europe, building their own manufacturing facilities. How do you cope with those, let's say, two things? That the European battery is struggling and the Chinese companies are ramping up their own productions in Europe. Is there a chance also for Rock Tech there to come in?
Absolutely. So we've always believed that partnership with Asian companies is really the key to unlocking success in Europe. We've also announced a couple of partnerships already on the engineering side, but also on the customer side. We think Hungary is doing a great job in bringing all of these Asian companies into their country. We definitely need that. You talked about Northvolt as a region in Europe, but also as a public, we need to go through a couple of these failures because ramping up a battery supply chain is not going to be easy. It takes guts, it takes a lot of capital, and we shouldn't stop with Northvolt. I mean, we need more of these projects. But yeah, partnership with Chinese companies is key for us.
Okay.
Same as I think it was key for Chinese companies to partner with BMW and the likes for engineering all of these, very nice luxury sedans when it still was internal combustion. Now it needs to be the other way around. We need to learn from them. At least is our understanding.
It's a good approach. What about, so what you are running is a refinery also, which is, let's say, key for the whole supply chain, as you said, but at the same time, it's, let's say, maybe the dirty job a little bit, no? I mean, we have been seeing a lot of criticism on refineries in China, which are, let's say, having a lot of pollution, a lot of water consumption, several topics which are difficult to manage with European environmental regulation. How do you cope with that?
So lithium refineries are not as polluting as other refineries.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's good. So you can sell 95% of these byproducts. So we have a zero waste approach at Rock Tech. So most of our byproducts go, for example, into the construction industry. So the construction industry is desperately looking for materials that are non-CO2 emitting. Mm-hmm. And some of our byproducts can be sold to the cement industry, for example. There's a few that need to deposit it, but it's only a small fraction. And it's also in terms of the classification of deposits. It's not very hazardous.
Not toxic or
no,
something.
absolutely not. Yeah.
Okay.
There is innovation in our space to get rid of most of the byproducts. Mm-hmm. Which we are also focusing on with research projects with universities, but that's all in pilot scale. And someone on the panel said it before, to go from pilot scale to industrial scale is a different ballgame. So yeah, but in terms of footprint, lithium refineries are much better than other refineries from other metals that you see.
Investment on battery related technology these days in Europe is as mentioned earlier, quite risky because the volume has not been coming up. Now this year we see volumes ramp up around Europe, so it's getting more on the greener side of things. But what has been the biggest challenge in getting all set up for the facilities in Brandenburg? Is it the regulatory framework? Is it getting the financing itself, the investors? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Mm-hmm.
No, great question. I think for us, Rock Tech, but also other junior companies, permitting in Europe is pretty straightforward when it comes to industrial and chemical plants. So hats off to the authorities. It's a bit of a different story for mining enterprises. Mm-hmm. So thinking about Portugal and also Spain, building a lithium mine, I think is a bit different because there's such of public involvement, which you need to also make sure to get along. So permitting has been quite straightforward. The Critical Raw Materials Act is also helping. It brings transparency to the process. We've also been designated as one of the strategic projects in Europe. So that is also helping in Canada, North America, but also Asia to become more apparent and transparent on the landscape. When it comes to financing, the one bottleneck that we see is you need strategic players such as battery producers, OEMs, to also chip in. Why? Because on our front, our offtake agreements, they need to be binding agreements, ideally with a floor and ceiling, so that investors really know what is the revenue and the profit that is generated in such a plant. Mm. And us as junior companies, we can only go so far without strategics coming in. We see them coming in. We have great discussions with many strategics. They understand the need for that. But also in a downturn scenario in Europe where they're needing to let go of people, the whole ecosystem, I think, is trying to understand their way forward. So financing has been one of the key topics that we're working on, and more so on the equity side than on the debt side. The commercial banks, when it comes to project financing, really like these sorts of projects. Mm. And as long as it's de-risked, and we have gone through all of the engineering studies, we've gone through the independent technical engineer study. So all of that is progressing quite well. But if you want, you need venture capital. But from big guys, right? Someone needs to chip in.
Which in Europe is difficult.
Which in Europe is taking longer than in other places. Yeah.
Maybe about opportunities and integration on value chain. So if I understand correctly, you have a deal with Rombai technology for cathodes. So you see there are opportunities to integrate more elements and generate more value through that?
Absolutely. So the cathode producers in the end are the ones who are enabling the supply chain. And with Rombai, we signed a strategic cooperation. We're discussing an offtake with them. Why? Because they've now located in Poland for a cathode plant. Our refinery is next to the Polish border, so they're really our neighbors. And also Chinese companies are telling us they really want to be a part of building the supply chain in Europe, as they have done in China over the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. So our end product goes into a cathode plant, like simply speaking. Those are our customers. Less so the OEMs, but the OEMs are bringing the financing.
Okay, great. We have been seeing, maybe, I'm not sure if it's written on our questionnaire, but I hope you can answer. We have been seeing some ups and downs on the sale figures of electric vehicles, which it makes this floor and ceiling borders for investment quite difficult. How is your approach now for Europe in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years? We have 2035 in mind. And how can we cope with that? How is it going to be able, Europe, to get greener, to get zero emissions and take profit of this kind of refineries and the whole supply chain industry in Europe?
The cost for batteries has been decreasing since the last couple of years now, and is now very, very competitive also if you compare it with internal combustion engines. With Chinese electric vehicles coming into the European market and further driving down cost for European suppliers to be competitive, we actually think that EVs are now the better car and the cheaper car compared to an internal combustion engine. So what you're going to see is a massive uptake in EV sales. If you look to Norway and other countries, it's already happening. I can only speak to Germany because we are there with the project. They've cut the incentive on EV sales, then EV sales dropped. Now they are talking about bringing it back again. So from our perspective, EVs are going to massively increase over the next couple of years. It's the cheaper technology. It's better for the customer in terms of servicing the car. It's the total cost of ownership is cheaper. It makes a lot of sense. Will it be only EVs? Maybe not. We'll give you that. But EVs will certainly be the majority of sales, also in Europe.
The main challenge is to make EVs affordable, right? And this
Correct.
is what we're seeing with Volkswagen, Renault in Europe to bringing them down. So you see also a push towards your part of the supply chain also to be more efficient, or is it just a matter of scaling? The scaling up will bring this.
Well, in the end, you need to ask the OEMs, but from our perspective, ideally, you are fully vertically integrated. And I think that's also something that you can learn from China, that you really put refineries next to cathode plants, next to battery plants, next to an OEM plant. And ideally, you are a shareholder in all of these. Again, this is probably a question to Volkswagen or maybe even PowerCo. But to be competitive, you need to produce at scale and you need to have leverage on all of your pieces in the supply chain.
And here in Spain, there are quite a number of investments going on on the EV segment. So maybe the next area to invest in Europe for you guys.
No, absolutely. I think Spain is doing all of the right things, and then with Morocco on the south, they have great supply from down there. So yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you already said PowerCo, which is also being built in Valencia, and I see also a link to your Canadian, let's say, origin of the company, because also PowerCo is being built in there's a plant in I don't remember the name of the place.
St. Thomas.
So that means that might be maybe a final question because we're running out of time. But how do you see, let's say, the European strategy for having the not only the supply chain but also the companies coming from outside to build up? It has to be, let's say, a European-made supply chain, or it can be a mixture also with Chinese or American companies helping in there?
I think it needs to be seen, to be honest. On the technology side, you absolutely need partnerships, what I said before. Who in the end is the owner of such a supply chain might even be a political discussion in the end. I don't know. You can see it from current political climates. Absolutely, you need to have involvement on the IP side from Asia. In the end, if an American or Canadian company builds a plant in Europe or a European company in North America, to me, that is not really changing the picture a lot, right? It's still a very friendly economic zone. So, without going too much into political discussion. But for us, as a Canadian company, Europe is a market and North America is a market. And so that's why we decided to, depending on the subsidy environment in Canada, to build our second plant in Canada, because you also have great OEMs over there. You have the American ones, you have a huge supply network in Canada when it comes to the automotive sector. So for us, it makes sense to build the second refinery in the home market. But it could also be a European company going to the US or US company going to Europe. But you will need Asian technology and IP. And you see it with the LFP plants.
Yes.
So you see machinery being held back in China for the latest generation LFP batteries. So yeah, you need partners there.
Thank you, Konstantin. Thank you
guys for having me. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too. Thanks. Bye.